Hello, and welcome to Solar Alberta's 2024 Solar Show, our 10th annual solar show. Today's session is called Solar Ready Design Principles. Please note that we have enabled closed captioning for this presentation. You can turn the captioning on in the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will be recording this session and making it available on our website and YouTube channel following the show. My name is Stephanie Westland, and I am the Solar Training Lead at Solar Alberta. I would like to take a minute to acknowledge that I am hosting you today from Calgary, whose traditional names include Moginstis, Winchispa, and Gutistsi. Calgary is located on the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. This includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, made up of the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Îethka Stoney Nakoda Nations, made up of the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney bands, and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. Calgary is also homeland to the historic Northwest Métis and to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We are delighted to have so many people register for this week and for this event. To start, we would like to thank Enbridge for sponsoring the 2024 Solar Show and Rocky Mountain Solar for sponsoring this exciting session today. We are happy and grateful to have them as sponsors. Today, we will be hearing from Grace Brown and Alex Koo. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer period that you can all participate in. We will be using Zoom Q&A for questions rather than the chat box, so please enter your questions in the Q&A section. Also, please click on the little thumbs up symbol to upvote questions that you like. This entire session will wrap up in an hour and a half. I would like to encourage you all to check out our online trade show during the week. We have listed on this slide and in the chat all the wonderful organizations that are participating in the trade show. To view their exhibitor booths, which include a listing of key solar-related services, contact info, and video instructions, please click on the link in the chat. Before we move forward, we are going to do a quick poll to get a sense of who we have joining us today. Please take a minute to answer the question popping up on your screen now. While some of you are still doing the poll, I encourage you to also take a minute to pop your name and land acknowledgement and any contact information you're comfortable sharing in the chat now and throughout the event so that others can look you up on LinkedIn and stay connected. Amazing. So it looks like we have a lot of solar curious and many solar related professionals as well. And it's really great to see that a number of you will be joining us later this week for several other sessions as well. Thank you so much. It's always nice to know who we have in the audience. And now to share a little bit about who we are. Did you know that Solar Alberta is now in its 33rd year of operation? Albertans have been excited about solar energy for a while now. We are a not-for-profit society dedicated to accelerating Alberta's transition to a just and sustainable energy future. We do so by advocating, educating, and serving as an industry hub and community hub for solar energy. Our membership is made up of over 760 individuals and 170 businesses. We provide a number of services, including managing a solar directory through our website. In this way, we act as a bridge for installers, suppliers, and other solar-related businesses to connect with their customers and clients. You can see a screenshot of that directory here on this slide and a link to it in the chat. In addition to our website services, we run a number of educational programs, such as this solar show, our seminar series, and a number of in-person and online networking events. Please note that the recordings of the 2021, 2022, and 2023 Solar Show sessions and seminars can also be found on our Solar Alberta YouTube channel. In addition to some Solar Show workshops that are industry-oriented, this spring we will once again be running a number of online courses for solar industry professionals or those transitioning into the sector. Our courses are on Tuesday and Thursday evenings on 3 to 5 nights over 2 to 3 weeks. First up is Economics of Grid-Tied Solar PV, which is great for anyone going into solar sales and marketing. You can already register for all of our courses at the link provided in the chat. We are also excited to offer a new Buy 3, Get Codes Free bundle. This bundle includes the 4 technical courses on the roster: solar PV electrical codes, solar PV design and modeling, battery energy storage and system design and modeling, and solar PV commissioning, operations, and maintenance. The link to purchase this bundle is also available in the chat. Recordings of these courses are also available for sale alongside our paid workshops in the solar training videos section of our website. In addition to providing education about solar, we also advocate for it. We are currently running a number of different letter writing campaigns. Please send letters today requesting that the Canada Greener Homes Grant be refinanced, an end to the provincial moratorium on renewable power plants, and a number of supports for solar and energy efficiency upgrades to homes and businesses in Alberta. In addition to our letter templates, we also have free Rise Up for Renewables lawn signs available for pickup in 11 municipalities around Alberta. Your support with our advocacy efforts is very important. You can click on the link in the chat to access all our templates and make a sign order today. Now that you know a little bit about us, we would love to take this opportunity to encourage you to join us, Solar Alberta, as a member. Membership is only $35 for individuals, and this week only, from January 29th to February 2nd, you can purchase an individual or student membership with a 20% discount. The link to become a member is also being placed in a chat. On April 24th, we will be hosting our annual general meeting, and I would like to invite all of you to sign up as members, attend, and elect your new board. There are several vacancies to fill on the board this year. If you are interested in applying to serve, you are welcome to do so through our website until February 29th. With your help, we are recognizing longtime dedicated contributors to Solar in Alberta by gifting them a free lifetime Solar Alberta membership. If you are currently a Solar Alberta individual or business member, and you know someone who has contributed significantly to the organization or the solar sector in Alberta as a whole, please consider nominating them for this award. We will be accepting award nominations until April 3rd, and the award recipients will be announced at our AGM. A list of previous recipients can be found on our website. And we are so excited to announce the Solar Alberta Diversity Scholarship. This scholarship is intended for equity-deserving individuals facing barriers to equal access, opportunities, and resources due to disadvantage and/or discrimination. Through the scholarship, we are seeking to promote inclusivity, amplify historically marginalized voices, and encourage diverse perspectives and participation in the solar show and solar and solar-related sector. We will award $2,000 to one equity-deserving individual registered in an Alberta training program that aligns with our mission of accelerating a just and sustainable energy future in Alberta. We will be accepting applications until end of day on April 24th, and the successful applicant will be notified by May 31st. Eligibility details and the scholarship application are available by clicking on the link in the chat. Thank you to Enbridge for sponsoring this scholarship. Finally, we ask that you please consider participating in our 50-50 raffle, which is over $2,200. The 50-50 raffle ticket sales will close on Friday, and Heather McKenzie will be doing the draw live at 5 p.m. during the Solar and Friends mentoring and networking event. Additionally, please consider donating through the crowdfunding link in the chat. The Government of Alberta is matching all donations made through this link. And now, I am delighted to get this session underway by introducing Sophie Cowan of Rocky Mountain Solar, our sponsor for the day. She will tell us a bit about Rocky Mountain Solar and then introduce our speakers. Welcome, Sophie.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sophie, and I'm the project manager for Rocky Mountain Solar Co. It is exciting to be part of this session today with Solar Alberta, so thank you for having us. Rocky Mountain Solar Co. was founded in January of 2021 with the goal of integrating roofing, electrical, and solar industries to provide accessible and practical solar energy options for homeowners and businesses. We offer both commercial and residential customers. We service both commercial and residential customers across Alberta through rooftop, ground mount, carport, off-grid solutions, and electrical vehicle charging stations. Some projects to note that we have completed are commercial rooftop arrays for the City of Calgary, Calgary Board of Education, and the Calgary Catholic School District. We've also completed a solar carport for Davis Auto Group in Airdrie and completed multiple residential installations for Homes by Abbey in Calgary, Alberta. Our main goal as an organization is to help our community in as many ways as possible. We accomplish this through the following. In early 2023, we achieved B Corp status, which legally requires us to prioritize social and environmental benefits alongside financial profits and reaffirms our commitment to a triple bottom line, considering people, planet, and profit. We continuously strive to improve our social and environmental impact and operate on a hybrid model that integrates profit motives with social and environmental responsibility. We are also proud that we are an Alberta living wage employer. This means that each of our employees are paid at least with the living wages within the city of Calgary where we are based. A living wage is the hourly wage a worker needs to earn to cover their basic expenses and participate in their community. This living wage also considers unexpected costs such as investments and emergencies. We are both a Solar Alberta and Calgary Construction Association member, and in November of 2023, Rocky Mountain Solar Co. became a silver sponsor of Solar Alberta. We have created a charity of choice program for our residential sale customers. So when a customer decides to purchase this system from us, they get to choose between 4 charities to donate $200 to. These charities include the Alex, Alberta Animal Rescue Crew Society, Veterans Association Food Bank, and Kids Sport in Calgary. I will now be introducing both of our presenters for today's session, Grace and Alex. Grace, in her day job, is a senior analyst on the Pembina Institute's electricity team, where her work focuses on regulatory reform and utility business model innovation to enable greater integration of renewable energy and just energy transition. Prior to joining Pembina, Grace worked for over 5 years on policy and regulatory issues for the residential solar energy industry in the United States. She is an NAPCEB photovoltaic associate and a passionate advocate for solar and distributed energy resources. Grace is interested in organizing and advocating for strong policies that support the growth and sustainability of Alberta's solar energy industry. Next is Alex. Alex is a partner at Tenant Power, a company focusing on clean energy development. Prior to joining Tenant Power, Alex served as a supervising engineer at ENMAX and vice president in deals at PricewaterhouseCoopers, or PwC. Alex's previous experience also includes senior roles with TC Energy, Capital Power, the Government Alberta, and Harbin Power Engineering Company. He has over 20 years of experience in the electricity industry and is passionate about adopting solar technology for Alberta's clean energy future. Alex is a chartered financial analyst, chart holder, a registered professional engineer, and a certified project management professional. Thank you everybody for listening today, and I will now pass the mic over to Grace and Alex to begin their presentation for today's session.
Thank you, Sophie, and good morning, everybody. Let me first share my screen. Hopefully I can do it. Okay. Okay, perfect. That's the screen I'm sharing right now. And again, thank you everybody in joining us today. In this presentation, we'll be explaining why there's a demand for solar-ready buildings, review the best practice with respect to solar-ready buildings, and explore a number of other considerations, such as solar integrated buildings and solar-ready community designs. Finally, we are happy to open up the floor for your questions and discussions.
All right, so let's get started with this beautiful map. So I don't think that it is news to anyone here that we are blessed with an abundance of sunshine here in Alberta. And this has really contributed to a high and growing demand for solar photovoltaic or PV systems in recent years. So as you can see from this map, Alberta has really incredible solar power generating potential, and we're really second only to Saskatchewan in Canada. So in September of 2020, there were about 9,600 solar systems on homes and businesses here in Alberta, but now there are over 16,400, which is really impressive growth in just over 3 years. And so really, in addition to our impressive solar generating potential, this growth can also be attributed to the price of solar PV dropping significantly since 2010. And there are also federal, provincial, and some municipal incentive programs that we have here in the for residential and commercial solar. So really, as this demand for solar increases, there's an imperative for residential and commercial buildings to be solar ready so that they can take this on. Making buildings solar ready is going to help new home and business owners avoid those additional costs that are associated with retrofitting for solar later. So that's going to increase the attractiveness of the property. And there is really a lot of potential for this continued growth of the solar sector here in Alberta. So now is a great time to look into making solar-ready buildings available to home and business owners.
Perfect. So what do we mean when we say a solar-ready building? So essentially, we are talking about preparing a building for potential adoption of the solar in the future. So for the purpose of this presentation, we're basically focusing on the solar PV ready home business. As you know, solar has a solar thermal and the solar PV, and this presentation is more about solar PV. The other thing is, for your background, it's important to start with pointing out that the roof-mounted solar is the most cost-effective than the ground-mounted solar PVs. So in this presentation, we're more focusing on solar rooftop solars. Also important to mention is that in Alberta, the home and business owners are only allowed to generate electricity that match their consumptions. So that's another thing we need to point out. The higher the beauty of the consumption, the larger the solar PV system may be permitted by the microgeneration regulation. So now let's review some of the key considerations in developing a solar-ready building.
All right, so let's talk best practices. So one important procedural consideration for successful solar-ready builds is making sure that everybody, all parties from start to finish of the project are aware of these solar-ready requirements. So that means that best practice means that all parties are going to have to coordinate throughout the entire project so that everyone understands that the solar-ready design as well as the project plan. So the architect, the engineers, the solar installers, all the trades that are involved throughout the project from design to commissioning are going to need to coordinate throughout. So to successfully manage a solar-ready build, you're going to want to hire architects and engineers who are experienced with solar design, involve a solar installer early on in the process, coordinate between all design disciplines. So you're going to want to take a look at things like the location of rooftop equipment, the exhaust fan and the vent locations, roof access, walkways, things like that, which we'll go into in more detail here in a minute. And you also want to make sure that everyone is aware of the solar-ready requirements and that also the plans include accurate placement of the roof obstructions so that you're designing it properly. And finally, you'll want the installation manager to regularly check that everyone is following this solar-ready plan and everyone's on the same page.
Let's take a look at the specific technical considerations for making a home or commercial building solar ready. As mentioned in the last slide, consideration between all design disciplines and all trade is key. The size of complexity of the design construction teams may vary between at a house or at a complex commercial facilities, but general guiding principles stay the same. So we have broken down solar-ready guiding principles into 4 categories: architectural or siting, structural, mechanical, and electrical. We'll go into more detail for each of these categories in the following slides.
Okay, let's talk architecture and siting. So ideally, we're going to have a south-facing roof that is pitched, not flat, with a slope higher than 3/12. So this is going to allow for the roof to get some good sun, some good solar irradiance, and it's also going to allow for a little bit of snow shedding, which is, of course, very important here. So the roof should also be relatively simple in shape so that that roof area can be maximized for solar on that south-facing roof, ideally. So you're going to want to avoid complex gables like the ones in this picture, unfortunately. It looks super cool, but it is not ideal for solar. And so for materials, on homes, asphalt shingles or standing seam metal are ideal roofing materials. And on commercial flat roofs, a torch-on membrane is preferable to any other material. So there's the TPO, I'm not really sure what that stands for, but it's the white, really cool roof that, is really nice for reflecting sunlight and keeping the building cool. But unfortunately, it can get pretty slippery in the winter, which can pose a hazard if anyone needs to get up there. And as well, tar and gravel roofs are going to pose structural and installation challenges for your solar racking. So that torch-on membrane on a commercial roof is going to be your best bet. So you'll also want to look for obstructions. So buildings, trees, other tall objects to the south of the roof should be considered, since they may significantly shade portions of the roof. If there is shading on the roof, that might be all right. There are some products that are better adapted for shade, for example, microinverters, but in general, less shading is always better. So these are ideal conditions for solar PV, but if the site doesn't meet all of these criteria, definitely not saying that it's going to be a bad site for solar. Your solar designer and installer is going to be the expert on that, and they can really accommodate a range of conditions. But if you're designing a solar-ready building from scratch, taking these steps into consideration is going to make it a lot easier, as well as more financially advantageous to get solar for that building.
Well, some of the architectural considerations are not essential, but structural considerations are crucial, because if the roof cannot accommodate additional weight from the solar system, and it will be very costly or impossible to install solar, as additional structural reinforcement may be required. Typically, a 3 PSF is recommended for attached flush mount system when solar module attached to the roof directly. But for commercial building, normally we need 5 to 8 PSF pound per square foot. For ballast system, and that's really creates some challenges in some of the commercial buildings. This is not a typical issue for residential roof, as it's important to consideration for commercial roofs, because the structure of the commercial room sometimes have some issues. And also in the residential area, the garage, maybe we pay attention as well. Some garage may not can handle that 3 PSF the way it looks. Your solar designer, installers, and the solar racking company will be able to provide an estimate of load considerations for the roof in your project.
So similar to architectural considerations, when we're taking mechanics into mind, you'll want to ensure that any roof obstructions, such as plumbing vents, exhaust fans, gas lines on commercial roofs, things like that, are going to be grouped to the north side of the roof as much as possible, or as close to the ridgeline as possible. That's going to leave the maximum area for solar on that roof. This is a little bit more relevant for commercial flat roofs where there's large stuff, mechanical units, gas lines, things like that, but it really goes for residential roofs as well. Like in the second picture here, you can see that this is a really good example of vent placement. Like this is a lot of vents, a lot of things going on this roof, and having all of those scattered all across the roof would make putting solar panels on this roof a lot harder and a lot less attractive. So having them all up to as close to the ridgeline as possible is going to get you a much nicer solar design.
Okay, of course, for the electrical, there's a lot to think about around the electrical service of the building. First, ensure there's an adequate place to house the solar inverters in the main electrical room, especially if you consider the string inverters. If you consider microinverter, it's fine. You don't really need the space near the electric panel. For the string inverters, you want to leave about open place 2 feet, 3 feet should be more than enough for typical residential installation. In terms of commercial regulations, require more room and depend on the size of the system, and you need some special consideration with that. For the residential system, a minimum 1-inch size conduit is recommended with a pull string from the top of the roof and to the attic. From attic to the electrical room. The attic conduit should be above the installation, and main electrical room conduit should be easily accessible by the installers. The conduit should be run such that it's easy to pull cable for the solar installation through the future. And please cap and seal and install all the conduit to meet current code. You also want to upsize the main electric panel's bus rating related to the main breaker ratings. For example, if you have a 200 amp main breaker for the house, we recommend the bus rating should be upsized to next size, such as a 225 ohms. They will ensure that electric service can handle the flow of more power from the solar system. Upsetting the panel bus rating at the beginning of the project saves a lot of cost and hassle compared with retrofitting to upgrade the panel bus. A power shutdown of the entire house and facility will be required if you upset the panel in the future. Finally, empty breaker space should be left in the main electric panel at the end opposite to the main breaker in order to facilitate the inverter installation in the future. For the commercial installation, electric design will vary widely from facility to facility. So we recommend that the solar consultant installer is involved with electrical design to ensure the panels, the breakers, and other electrical equipment are properly sized and meet the Canadian Electric Code. If you're interested in future reading on all of this, then our Canadian Solar Ready guideline provide more extensive information on the best practice for preparing a building to be solar ready.
All right, so now that we've talked about the core elements of making a building solar ready, we can talk about the extra stuff that you can do. So it is very common for folks who go solar to make the most of that investment by upgrading the rest of their house too. So looking at all electric appliances, getting a heat pump, getting an electric vehicle, or even a second EV, as well as looking at battery storage options. So there are a lot of products that are available out there that can complement your solar array and maximize your energy independence. But that's also going to make you use more electricity. So for these types of additional things, we recommend that builders consider pre-wiring for 200 amp services, as well as meter-based disconnects. So that's going to ensure that no new electrical panel or service upgrades are going to be needed in the future, and that the home can just handle everything that it needs. And this is particularly important if you're looking at integrating a secondary or tertiary suite for homes, if you're looking at making it into a multi-unit. And if you are already building for solar, why not just make the building EV ready as well? So what you'd want to do for that is include a 240 volt, 40 amp branch circuit to any garage or private parking area. But also keep in mind that to make that garage storage ready, adequate space is going to be needed in that garage or the outlying building. And then all of those conduits should be upsized as well to accommodate for that additional capacity that's needed.
Perfect. Well, all of these solar ready designs considerations are extremely important and can set folks up for easy install after purchase. There are many benefits of working with a professional solar installers directly from the design stage. So not only can can be a solar installer, help you to think through each of the solar-ready building considerations prior to investing time and money in a new building. But having a partnership with installers from on-site can allow your client the benefit of one-stop purchase. It's much easier for new homeowners to finance their solar installation as a standard addition to their new home financing, rather than having to put in a separate financing mechanism at the later days as well. So builders such as Landmark, J-Man, and Avon Masters and others are working together with solar installers to provide green turnkey products for Albertans.
And another option is for municipalities to develop solar-ready or solar-integrated neighborhoods rather than just relying on builders to start the trend. The Drake Landing solar community in Okotoks is a really cool example of this initiative, and you can see that in this picture here. So in addition to the building-specific design principles that we just went over, there are some community design principles to consider as well. So first, your street orientation and design. So you'll want to use a grid or fused grid street pattern, like you can see here in Drake Landing, rather than those curvy streets. That's going to be able to maximize the community's solar access. Second, you want to be conscious of shading. So trees and greenery are such an important piece of community design, and it is really important to integrate those and analyze where they're going to be placed so that they can be integrated into the community in a way that minimizes shading on south-facing surfaces as well. And finally, for the community, you'll want to work with the utility company to look at things like electric vehicle charging infrastructure, as well as your electricity distribution and transmission infrastructure to make sure that everything is going to be, able to work well together. So there's also a lot of cool things you can do with electric vehicles and a lot of ways that you can use them as assets, especially in a community context.
So I want to talk a little bit about building integrated solar. For example, lots of building products, for example, roofing, sidings, windows, and railings, and awnings, and that can be integrated directly into building. So building integrated solar PV is better suited for commercial buildings or multiple family homes, as they are relatively custom installation and more expensive compared to conventional solar PV models. So they tend to have a lower electricity production than conventional PV due to their orientations and tilt. But oftentimes they also add some aesthetic element to the building and make it really beautiful, and also help large buildings to get achieve to net zero.
And another cool thing to consider is integrating solar for its greenhouse or shading attributes, as well as its power generating potential. So of course, making a solar-ready rooftop garden is not as affordable as a basic solar-ready roof, but these two things are not mutually exclusive. So you can do both of these things, as you can see here at this building in Edmonton, and have a nice green roof as well as a nice solar roof.
Okay, now let's talk about solar-friendly municipal policies. So municipalities can also be promote green technologies through solar-friendly policies. For any of you who may be working for or advocating for municipalities, here are some of the example of policy that may be considered. First, municipal allowance for design variance to facilitate energy efficiency retrofit and power generation upgrade. For example, adjustment for maximum heights or setback requirements. Second, consider implementing bylaws that support higher building standards, because of the provincial energy code right now will not get us to the goal of net zero buildings. This could also include bylaw requirements for solar above ground, parking lots, and for other ideas like requiring buildings to integrate some of these solar-ready design principles in order to receive permits to build. Municipalities can also consider reducing any zoning and design guidelines or restrictive covenants that could prevent adoption of solar PV. Since solar installations can add considerable value to a house, it's recommended that solar-friendly municipalities not including this added value in property tax assessments. This is particularly important for commercial properties where the tax increase could be considerable given the size of the sum of the commercial arrays. There are always multiple perspectives involved when making changes, and we are invested in adopting green on green controversy. We're trying to avoid that. With this in mind, Solar Alberta has developed solar siting recommendations for developers and city planners, and this information is available on our website. Our partner, the Municipal Climate Change Action Center, has put together great information about solar-friendly municipal planning that should also be reviewed.
All right, that's it. So yeah, that's what we have for today. If you didn't feel like taking notes today, we have consolidated this information into a blog post and a one-page checklist, and to help homeowners and builders prepare for going solar. So these resources are available on our website at solaralberta.ca, and also a recording of this presentation will be available after this. So looking forward to the Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for being with us today, this morning. We hope we learned something together. And right now, we open the floor to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Alex and Grace. Just a reminder, everybody, please put your questions into the Q&A, and there's a little thumbs up button where you can upvote questions. Right now, we have one question from Panella, who asks, is wind uplift also a consideration for the structure?
Sorry, Stephanie, you said wind lift is considered?
Is wind uplift also a consideration for the structure?
Yes. So actually, the wind lift is the most important factor, for example, in commercial building solar. So all the weight need to be calculated and to prevent that wind lift from the building when we calculate the ballast weight. So for the residential building, the wind uplift is also important, but the key difference between the commercial building and residential building is the residential building normally have attachment attached to the roof. So wind lift is less an issue compared to a commercial building, because commercial building, we don't really want to have a kind of attachment on the roof. We're trying to prevent that. So all these things, wind lift is prevented through the ballast weight. So that's a very important factor for both sides, but most important for commercial buildings.
Okay, there are a few other questions coming in now. Someone is asking, how are solar panels cleaned of snow? Is snow melt built into the panel?
Snow melt built in the panel? Sorry, Stephanie. Okay, so normally is for a residential building, we don't really recommend any kind of cleaning. And except, for example, you see in California areas with dry season for a long time and lots of soil and dirt built on the solar panels. That's time we recommend to do some cleaning in the solar panel. But in Alberta, no, because solar panels, we do have some dirt and build up, but we hope the rain wash it away. Solar panel also have a thin layer of a coating, and that's will help the dirt when it's wind coming in or the snow is sliding down, that kind of coating. With not properly prepared brush to clean up the solar panel is we don't recommend that. We heard that coating actually more problem than benefit. For ground mounted the solar, we do recommend some cleaning, use the blowers to do that, but they have quite steep slope compared to some of the commercial buildings. they probably have a 30 degree something. So it's very easy for the snow to shed, but whatever left, I use a blower to blow that. So that's what they recommended.
Okay, thank you. A next question from York is, when will we have solar panels replacing the actual roofing material? Today, we are actually installing a second roof above the shingles, etc. Does that?
So if I understand correctly, is we're talking about the life difference between shingles and the solar panels. So why not I put some lights on that, and if some additional question, we can discuss that. So for us, we don't really recommend to put solar panels when the shingle is scheduled to replace, for example, in next 10 years. Because when the shingle will be replaced, we have to remove all the solar panels, all the rackings, and put a new shingle and put it back. So in that case, we think we really recommend it with installing some solar panels when some of the shingles are relatively new.
Right. I think the question maybe, and York, you can add to this if you need to, but I think he's asking, I know that we've heard about technologies where solar panels will be built right into the roof shingles.
Okay.
I think that's what he's asking.
Okay. Like Tesla solar shingles.
Maybe.
Yes, we definitely have some product available, but I do not see much products available right now in Alberta. But I believe in US there's Tesla have that solar shingles. I'm not the expert to know the economics of it, but I guess it's probably more expensive and maybe cost prohibitive than installing the solar panels on a traditional roof.
Yeah, in the States, Dow and GAF have some solar shingles that you can put on residential buildings. I don't know how available the Tesla roof is, but yeah, like Alex said, I'm not sure about the availability of those products in Alberta. But the thing about those is that you're going to be looking at they're slightly less efficient than just your regular solar panels. So I mean, it's definitely a consideration, something that you can do, and I'm sure there are people who will do it if you want to, but there are some extra design considerations involved, and it likely costs quite a bit more.
Okay, thank you. Panella is now asking, I have heard that in some cases, fire departments are reluctant to fight a house fire with a solar array mounted on a roof due to the solar array is always live and poses a risk to the firefighters. Is that true? Or is there a shutdown mechanism in the case of a fire? I'm still early in my learning journey, so hopefully this is not a naive question. No questions are naive, Panella.
Okay, that's really a great question. There are a code requirement difference between US and Canada. So in terms of the residential area, I want to talk about two systems. One is micro inverter system. So when the micro inverter system, for example, fire happening or something, the firefighter can always close the main breaker. Same thing like other part of your house, right? There's some other wires and exposed to firefighters. But if firefighters close that breaker either in the street or in your house, the solar array is automatically shut down. So there's no problem with firefighters if you use microinverters, and it's code allowed. It's definitely code compliant, everything. So now we talk about the string inverters. So in Canada, what we do with the string inverters is string inverters is once you have the main breaker closed, the solar array still have high voltage and can be a problem for firefighters. So what we do right now, we have a rapid shutdown box near the solar array. So that rapid shutdown box will detect the loss of the power when the breaker is closed out and automatically shut down the entire array, make it voltage to a very low voltage is safe for firefighters. So in short, in Canada right now, we are have this kind of mechanism to help the firefighters to fight with a fire in the residential area if it happens.
Awesome. I see David Kelly has entered into the discussion here as well, saying that Calgary Fire Department will not put a firefighter on a roof in any case. A TGI joint will burn through in 7 minutes, so it is unsafe for firefighters to be on a roof. They will vent the gable end. So thank you for weighing in, David. Now where are we at? Hamid is asking, what is the impact of hailstorms on solar panels?
Grace, you want to weigh in that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for giving me an easy one, Alex, I guess. I just figured I'd sit here and let you do this since you're the solar installer and I'm the policy person. But yeah, as far as hail, I mean, hail is definitely a concern, right, for any structure. So solar panels are going to do about as well as anything else in a hailstorm. But they are generally more durable. And it's more likely really that your roof structure itself is going to get damaged. So the structure that's next to the solar panels rather than the structure that's underneath the solar panels, rather than the solar panel itself being damaged. But if you have a solar system on your house, you're going to want to make sure that it's covered by your insurance anyway. So like any other part of your house, you're going to have the same coverage on it as you would for anything else that would get hail damaged.
Perfect.
You can probably answer that more precisely, yeah. Alex.
Well, why not? I just add a little bit data in it. Grace put a very important 2 points. One is solar panel is very strong, it's durable, and then the roof material itself. Second is you can always cover that damage with house insurance. And I cover my panels with house insurance and with free. There's no premium increase, so that's a good thing. Maybe I put a little bit data on why solar panels is more stronger than the shingles. So when a solar panel released from the factory, they are tested with 83 kilometers with 1 inch diameter hailstorm and travel at 90 degrees to the panel. So it's quite a test. So on this, especially some of the solar panels, they are installed in the house and not 90 degrees, right? If it's 45 degrees, you need to times 1.4. So that's to calculate that's impact of it. And that's probably the same data that I can provide. But in short, Grace is make a good point. Is they strong and they will cover it with house insurance. Thank you, Grace.
Fantastic, thank you. Now we have Justin, who is asking, in speaking to solar installers, some appear to really push for standing seam metal roofs, since then they won't have to puncture the roof. Is standing seam metal clearly better for solar than asphalt shingles? And then Justin adds, we are presently replacing the roof, so this is a decision that he's making fresh. So not ripping down a slightly substandard roof.
You see, I think the asphalt shingle roof and the standing seam roof, they are both wonderful for solar installations. But solar, I think in the residential area, the asphalt shingle are more popular. In the commercial area, they are standing seam are more popular. So from homeowner point of view, it's more about that kind of aesthetic feeling you want between the asphalt shingle and the standing seam. But both of them are very easy to install. When you consider the metal roof, good thing of metal roof is I think they're a little bit more expensive, but they last longer, right? And in the metal roof area, there are standing seams and there's some other, those kind of a waved metal roof. And some people use interlock as well. But the standing seam is the best because you don't need any kind of penetration. There's the clamp, just clamp on the seam and put the L hook and then put the solar panel on. That's easy to do. And you only have a penetration is just have a junction box and from there and get all the wires down to your house. But the other one, for example, that kind of waved metal roof, you can also do that. We just need to have a puncture of 2 holes for each attachment. And for the interlock, that's going to be a little bit the issue because normally we do interlock is we ask a company to do it, to do the punch, to do the penetration because they have like 50 years warranty and they won't honor it. We just go there and do everything. So definitely need to consider when you go to change your roof, more about aesthetic thinking whether you want to asphalt shingle or a metal roof. But in metal roof, please use standing seam.
Awesome, thank you. Jennifer is asking if we can talk more about ground mount versus roof mount. So if you have a ground mount area available, what are ground mount advantages? What about underground cable considerations?
Okay, so ground mount, the advantage of the ground mount is always it can produce more electricity because we just finished one ground mount is when people put ground mount, they probably use 30 degrees, and 30 degrees is a very good angle. You can face in the south. So it's a perfect angle and tilt that can get maximum electricity generated from the system. And some of the ground mount, they use automatically tilting, for example, in the winter, you want it to tilt more, and because the sun is relatively shallow, and in summer, you just tilt it back. And there's automatically tracking system. But in the residential area, lots of time, people just use a menu. You can just having things go there and push it and lock it, so it produce more electricity. It's great. So that's a great thing about the ground mount. It produces a lot of electricity compared to roof mount because depending on your roof direction, it's just hard to predict. But the shortcoming of the ground mount is we have to do some structural things. Is right now more popular is just the piling, which is put pile in, and you order to build the rest of the structure up. So that's really the shortcoming of the ground mount is just the cost. In terms of the wiring, so normally the ground mount is a little bit far from the house because you definitely don't want to build your array very near your house from aesthetic reason. So normally we have a trench. We just trench it from the solar array, trench it and put conduit inside and put the wiring inside and go direct to your house. That trench is not that expensive. Some homeowners just rent the trenching machines and they do it themselves. If they're handy, so it's not really a big issue for ground mount a project.
Thank you, Alex. Changing directions now, Calvin is asking if we have any examples of Alberta municipalities that have put into place a bylaw or standard for solar that goes above the Alberta Building Code. We've had indications that the province is not supportive of municipalities putting in place this type of standards or bylaw.
I wonder if Heather has a good answer for that. I feel like you would.
I can give you a little update on that. So the city of Edmonton has, of course, been considering that, and for some time now. They apparently have a report coming forward in February to council or one of the committees, updating folks on what options they have to regulate for emissions reductions with respect to the built environment. And hello, everyone. I should say I'm Heather. I'm the Executive Director of Solar Alberta. So I do a lot of the advocacy work for the team. We are pushing hard on that. So we will be very active next month when this comes forward to council with their options. That said, as you may have heard, and I think the question referred to, the government of Alberta is looking at taking that power away from Edmonton and Calgary. So my understanding is currently the only municipalities in Alberta that have the power to regulate with respect to built form emissions are Edmonton and Calgary because of their city charters. I don't believe either of them have tested that power. Now that Edmonton is exploring testing that power, the government of Alberta is exploring taking that power away. So obviously that's not ideal because the province has not set the bar very high when it comes to standards and codes and energy tiers. So we're very disturbed by that. That said, we are lobbying right now, not just for Edmonton and Calgary to have the power to regulate with respect to the built environment. We actually think every municipality in Alberta should have that power. And so, just like the Municipal Government Act was amended to allow every municipality to adopt a clean energy improvement policy and program, we are hoping that the government of Alberta will consider adopting amendments to the Municipal Government Act to allow every municipality in Alberta the power to basically push the bar higher if they can. And of course, that depends a lot on the builders in those regions. So some areas like Edmonton and Calgary have green builders and they can set the bar a bit higher. There are parts of the province that don't have a lot of green builders, and so it's harder for them to do that. There's still a lot of learning and growth. That said, when the province enabled all municipalities to adopt clean energy improvement programs, what we actually saw was a number of smaller municipalities came out in front and actually adopted their policies and programs before Edmonton and Calgary. So I don't think we should be ruling out the smaller municipalities. Just because they're smaller doesn't mean they don't have any green builders. And so we're not just pushing for Edmonton and Calgary to continue to have that power. We're also pushing for every municipality to have it. So yeah, please join us. Actually, that's one of the things we're asking for. If you go to solaralberta.ca, there's an Advocate with Us section on our website. We have a template letter to the Premier where we don't just ask for them to maintain the power of Edmonton and Calgary to regulate the built environment. We're actually asking them to expand that to all municipalities in the province and really decentralize that power. So yeah, welcome to join us with that. And thanks for the segue, Grace. I love talking about that topic, so I appreciate it. I'll leave it to you folks for the rest of the questions.
Thanks so much, Heather. Someone is asking about the licenses and permits that are required to prospect, survey, design, sell, and install solar panel systems in Alberta. Want to take a stab at that, Alex?
Yes. So why not we put in two sections. One is a residential permit. So residential permit is when we talk about residential permit in Edmonton and Calgary, the big city, you only need electrical permit, and that's about it. And you also need interconnection agreement, which is with APCOR and AMAC, so allow you to connect that system in the system. But when we talk about electrical permit, when we look at the Edmonton and Calgary, is you make sure the solar panel meets certain standard. For example, it's not too high above the roof, it's not over the eaves, and those things, there's a pre-questionnaire. You say, no, you don't have this. Then you only need electrical permit to going forward. But in some relatively small municipalities, they accept the electric permit, they also need building permit. So they need to identify, all this building permit requirement. You submit all the structuring assessment drawings, and they give you building permit, electric permit, and interconnection agreement with the local utility company, and you're done. You're set to go. So when you talk about the ground mounted, so they're roughly the same. So they need building permit and electric permit. And sometimes when we lay the cables from the solar array to the house, they come, there's a separate permit, it's an electric permit. They come here to assess the areas, if everything is good. So basically, in short, it's roughly the same. So probably you need a little bit separate electric permit when we look at underground tables.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer is asking about the typical ampage requirement for an electric heat pump and electric water heater. I don't know if either of you can weigh in on that.
Yes. The heat pumps, lots of time really depend on its capacity. For example, if some of the capacity maybe is about 7 kilowatt, something in the peak capacity, and normally they need about 40 amps. A breaker should be good enough. Again, it depends on the capacity of heat pump, but normally I think 40 amps is very popular. Same with EV. Some EV charger, their peak capacity is 48 amps, and you probably don't want to structure your wires, which with 45 or 40, because the highest is 48, and you probably want to offset that wire and your breakers to meet the specification of that equipment you're installing.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Lisa is wondering about whether we have a source for our definition of EV ready.
That's a really good question, Lisa. And maybe that's something that Heather can help me out with actually for Solar Alberta's EV ready definition. But I know that BC Hydro has one. If I can plug my colleagues at the Pembina Institute, we have some work on EV ready buildings in multi-unit residential configurations. So I'd be happy to drop a link to that publication in the chat if I am allowed to do so. Okay.
Yeah,
But
well, I wasn't going to add much to that, Grace. I was going to say, basically, we look to our partners. You know, we really have a strong relationship with Pembina, so we're very keen on how they're defining that. Definitely drop that link in the chat. Also, we have a partnership with the Electrical Vehicle Association of Alberta. You know, we've learned from them some things, but we really don't have a lot on that in this presentation, of course, because that's not our area of expertise. Definitely happy to keep learning and growing with you, Lisa, and others on this topic. So if you find more resources out there other than those from EVAA and Pembina, please send them our way. We're always happy to learn and grow with you on the EV ready components. And I do understand they're a little bit different than solar ready components, obviously, considerably, and also much simpler. You know, when you say EV ready, it's often just about making sure folks can charge their car. And so it's not as dramatic design consideration as you would have with solar ready. And I know in parts of Canada, this is pretty standard. In Vancouver Island, when my aunt was building a home, it was just automatic. The EV charger was there. She didn't even have an EV, but it was there already. And now she's looking at getting an EV. And so sometimes if you build it, they will come and people will start to adopt those technologies as well. So yeah, thanks for sharing that resource, Grace. And definitely all those in the audience who have resources on that, we're happy to share. We care about solar, but also everything solar related, and electric vehicles are definitely a key component of that.
Thanks, Heather. You might want to stay on. I have a feeling there's a few, you might be able to help out in a few more of these questions here. Justin is saying, when we built a solar system in Nova Scotia, we were able to build it to 120% of historical and anticipated usage due to more generous regulation. When will we see the cap on 100% of historical usage being relaxed in Alberta? We should be using all the roof space we have. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Justin. I feel like I planted you there. Justin and his children go to the same school as mine, so I'm not surprised we have similar passions. Alex, do you want to touch on that, and then I can talk about our advocacy work?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the issues we are looking at, because a lot of time people have this roof space and it can install more solar. But right now, both in Alberta, so they did, in principle, they are asking for the generation should cover the consumption. So if we interpret it correctly, it's probably just 100%. But depend on the simulation result, you do see sometimes fluctuated, because you know simulation is a simulation, and so lots of assumptions going in it, and lots of time I think the utility companies can consider a little bit more if you apply that with the simulation result. So in short, yes, we are looking at 100%, but it's never really a clear-cut one. You always have some room up and down.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Alex. I know that the microgeneration regulation currently is a little bit vague, and intentionally, because the wire providers, so EPCOR and Max, Fortis, ATCO, and others, they have a little bit of wiggle room to actually set their own standards. So some of them will do 110%. Some of them will say, what was your previous 3-year average? In some cases, as we've just seen recently, a decision made through the AUC, a 3-year average was used. That was really interesting. It was for a large farming operation that had experienced, 2 years of drought recently, and previously, had a very high electricity usage and was anticipating more in the future when there's not a drought. And so that was a really interesting decision. They were permitted to go ahead with a very large system compared to their previous 2 years, based on the fact that they were a farm, the fact that the last 2 years were not reflective of their typical usage, and that the average of the longer term was more reflective of what they would see in the future. So that was really interesting. The Alberta Utility Commission actually said they're not going to make it hard and fast for those wire providers. They're going to give them that opportunity to kind of make decisions still on their own, but those decisions should encourage folks to adopt renewable energy on site. And that was really exciting to see the AUC say that the intent of the microgeneration regulation is really to encourage folks to adopt generation on site. And so they want the distributors to sort of flex things in that way to encourage it. So that was kind of exciting. And I was glad to hear that, because you don't often hear that the intent of the regulation was to encourage distributed generation. On that note, we still don't think that's good enough, obviously, whether it's 100%, 110%, whether it's your last 3-year average. We're trying to fight climate change here, so we really should be maximizing roof space and all that jazz. So we are advocating for the microgeneration regulation to be amended. That is included in one of the letters we have on our advocacy page to the Premier. And we would like to get rid of the restrictions on anyone with 200 amp service or less. And so basically, we think that can be accommodated without putting undue stress on the distribution system. And yeah, join us. On Friday at lunch, we have members of the Government of Alberta coming to talk about the small scale generation regulation. And one of the wonderful things that we learned from one of those presenters recently is that they're very open to our feedback on these regulations. Nicole, who's speaking on Friday, she said, these are relatively new regulations. The microgeneration regulation, I think it came in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. The small scale generation regulation, I don't think that came in till probably 2016 or later. It was, these are relatively new. So they're very open to our feedback. These are not shut deals, done deals, so please do share your feedback. If you want to maximize your roof space, now's a great time to tell the Government of Alberta, because they very well might be opening up those regulations for amendments in the coming year. So the more feedback they get, the better. And that's part of why they're joining us at the Solar Show this week. So hopefully that helps answer that question a little bit.
Sorry about that, everyone. My Zoom seems to be shutting in and out. If I disappear again, I might have to get Heather to just grab over for me. Penella has a really great question here. She says, as a building inspector, it is very difficult to effectively inspect a solar installation from when a building permit is required. We generally don't go onto a roof of a single family dwelling, and doing a visual inspection from the ground is really quite pointless. Are there any thoughts or comments on how to better perform this?
I will take that, Stephanie. I totally agree with your comments. Lots of time when the permit is issued and the inspector, it's really difficult to go up the roof to check everything. I think there's two things we can ensure that quality is there. One is installer has to take that professional liability and responsibility, because certain kind of drawings need to submit it to the permitting department. make sure that drawing is followed, because that drawing is the commitment and how that things need to be installed, right? How this attachment attach the roof, how many attachments there, how to connect to the railing is all there. They need to be followed. It cannot be changed. It is their responsibility to make sure that happens. And the other thing I also feel is a lot of times something is not in the drawing, it belong to the installation procedure. For example, the wiring is, we don't really want the wiring touching the roof. There's nothing electrical consideration. It's more about the wiring because of water or rain or something. And that's will wear the wire off. And we expect all installers to tie the wire very clearly to the rail and the other part, make sure it's not touching the roof. That part is not in the drawing, but difficult to inspect. I understand that. And I heard some areas using the drone, and maybe that's a good idea, but you still cannot go really inside, slide inside to see exactly all the wiring. But you're probably able to see some of the offset part where the wire is touching the roof. I think that's maybe a solution that we can do. But in short, is we really expect the solar installers to take their professional responsibility to make that happen. Follow the drawing is immediate.
Thank you, Alex. Alan is wondering if you already have a PV system installed and your consumption increases, say with an installation of a heat pump, can the PV system be increased accordingly to match the increase?
So we actually have a blog on this topic, which I just want to plug right now. Because each of the wire providers was kind of doing heat pumps a little differently. So we pulled them together this past year. We had a nice big email exchange, and we got them all to kind of say how they're doing it, sort of align themselves, and then we made a blog. So I would really like to refer you to our homepage. There's a blog there. There's a whole section on heat pumps. In short, if you are using your heat pump exclusively, absolutely. Once you've purchased it, you can upsize your PV system. If you're using it in addition to a natural gas heating source, then you often need 1 year of utilization to demonstrate that you're actually using it instead of just using natural gas. So yes, heat pumps can be included. It's a little different than an electric vehicle. With an electric vehicle, all you need is your bill of sale and you're good to go. You can increase your solar size accordingly. But with a heat pump, if it's an auxiliary system, or if there is an auxiliary natural gas system, you're going to have to prove that you're using it before they will let you incorporate that into the size of your system. So definitely check out our blog. We also did a session at the Solar Show last year that's available on our website on the training section about heat pumps specifically, and we had a professor from NATE come and talk to us about that. So check that out in our workshops and training section of our website. It's very affordable. I think it was just like $40 or something. That's not about the solar component, that's just the heat pump component, because we get so many questions about it. So yeah, thanks for that though.
Thanks, Heather. Josh is asking a great question related, because we're talking about solar ready builds. So it sounds like he's moving into a new house in May, and he's wondering how the averages work if you're moving into a new house. So he wants to schedule an energy evaluation as soon as possible, but also wants to add a heat pump and buy a first EV within a year of moving in. So how does that, I guess the question is, how are averages accounted for in building for solar ready buildings, and then when somebody wants to add to that load potentially?
I think there are some standards depending on your municipality and where you're located in the province. When we were buying a new build with solar on it, I think our installer was allowed to put 7 kilowatts up. It was just kind of an average here in Edmonton. If you're getting a new row home built, you can have 7 kilowatts. So definitely some standards that are probably local. Alex, maybe you can add to that for a new build. In terms of your electric vehicle, though, you won't be allowed to increase your size until you have the bill of sale. If you just plan to have an electric vehicle, they don't include that. You have to literally buy it. Once you've bought it, then they can upsize. And so you will be able to add on, like we did after, we're going to be able to add on, I think, another 4 kilowatts now or something like that. So it is significant. And same with the heat pump. I think I just answered that question. If you buy it, if it's all you're using, great, you can add it on. If it's not all you're using, then you'll have to wait for a year to prove that you're using it. But Alex, did you want to add anything about the new
Sure.
home
Yeah,
process?
yes, I can do that. I definitely echo what Heather said because a lot of time when you have the system there already and based on the standard that we install, you won't be able to add any kind of future consumption, for example, EV heat pumps, and when you apply for that solar permit. So we really recommend if you really want to go for example, heat pump, I would suggest add it in first before you submit the application because your second team that developed a house or redo another add-on is definitely costly compared to one time you just get it done. One term of when you move in a new house, you don't really have a 12 months consumption, right? It is an issue. And we did discuss with like Amex and Epcor. Every utility company has its own process, but normally process is like this. Sometimes they based on historical usage similar house, sometimes use the square foot of your house, but lots of time it's very helpful if you had HOT 2000 report because any kind of new house when the builder is building in, there's a very specific how this house is going to be built, what's the installation, all this window, everything and compared to how much people are going to live in, they already have the consumption estimate in that report. And the utility companies love to see that. A lot of time when we have a heat pump, there's old HOT 2000 report. We just ask the energy auditors to re-estimate what happened to heat pump coming in. And with that HOT 2000 report, we are easy to get the permit for the new house.
Okay, thank you. I see there's been a couple of questions in the chat about the length of time that it's taking to approve microgeneration applications. I don't know if anyone wants to tackle those.
I think Alex and I were actually emailing about that just this week. Yeah, so we have heard a lot of members as well as a lot of the public are very concerned, especially in some areas of the province. They're seeing very significant lags. I will say we've been surveying our members and it looks like there are some areas that are successfully processing applications in 2 to 3 weeks. So so if you're in an area that's not, they are an outlier. They're not all delayed the way that some are. So what we're doing right now is we're working on drafting a letter about this to the distributors, or the wire providers, where we're hearing the greatest concerns. We're going to try and message their CEO and president and CC the minister. Ultimately, there is nothing in the regulation right now about when they have to hook you up. So there is a stipulation that when you do an initial application, they have to process that within 2 weeks, I believe. But there's nothing right now saying that they have to process your subsequent application in any time frame whatsoever. So that's a bit of a problem. We're thinking right now at Solar Alberta, maybe we need to advocate on that change for the microgeneration regulation too. Maybe there needs to be a 2-week or 3-week hookup timeframe as well. So if you have thoughts on that, please send them to me, heather@solaralberta.ca. We could talk about whether we want to advocate on that change to the microgeneration regulation too. At the end of the day, if it's not in the regulation, it makes it a little bit hard for those organizations, for those companies to staff up. So we're seeing huge demand right now, especially because of the Canada Greener Homes programs. And there's huge demand, and a lot of those distributors are not ready for that demand. The federal government rolled out that program with almost no consultation. So very few distributors were ready for that program. And they didn't actually consult with us either. So just full disclosure, that program came really quickly. There's a lot of demand. Nobody was ready. Some of them are staffing up and eating that cost, and others are not willing to eat that cost. And so ultimately, unless they have folks at the top who are willing to pay for better service to microgenerators, you are at a disadvantage. So definitely a frustration we're hearing. We're trying to figure out what to do about it, and happy if folks have ideas about how to address that, because obviously the pace we're seeing in uptake for residential solar right now is a pace we would like to continue. And so we need to be able to figure out and adapt to this new reality, which is the reality we want to live in.
Okay, thank you, Heather. I am noticing that we're coming close to the end here, and many of you have questions that are kind of new to solar curious questions. And so I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that we are offering Solar 101 at noon today, and you can still register for that. I think if you register now, I think you can register in the next 9 minutes. There is a cutoff. So we may not get to all of your questions, but you could try again at noon. Now, Michael, is asking about whether anyone could comment on storage for a residence. So I think we're talking battery storage there.
I can comment on that. So we do install batteries, both grid-tied and off-grid. I think let's talk about grid-tied. I think grid-tied battery, my personal thinking is more about its economics, because, for example, if you look at the 10 kilowatts battery system, lasts a house with average 2 kilowatt hours per hour, probably 4 or 5 hours, something like that. It will normally cost more than $10,000. So that's basically the case. And from an economic point of view, you also think about it, why you want to add the battery, because you want to have the electricity when it's a blackout, or when the grid is outage. I want people to think about what's the probability that your grid is having that issues, and whether it justify the cost of putting a battery. The other benefit of having a battery is you can store the power in the battery and use it in the evening, so you save the transmission distribution costs. Again, I encourage people to do a little bit financial modeling. And myself in financial people is very careful with what's really the cost, what's really the benefit out of it. So that's basically the residential. But we do install residential battery, and homeowner likes it, have their own reason to doing that. In terms of off-grid, battery is becoming essential, right? Because there's no grid there. And when you install that battery, I think lots of time we need to consider the site situation, the size of the battery, because in the winter storm coming in 5 days is no sun. What are you going to do with it, right? It's definitely need to consider emergency generator. Everything need to be automatically incorporated in order to make sure that happens. The other thing we see our off-grid system is think about those kind of minus 40 days. The battery won't be able to be charged when its temperature is below 0. So you need quite some power to heat that shed in order to make sure, when it's minus 40 signs going out, your battery is charging. Otherwise, you keep on using an emergency generator for a long time. So that's basically my thoughts on the battery in the two areas.
Thanks, Alex. York here is asking about when you're planning to install an inverter, is it better to plan to install it in the attic, in the mechanical room? Is it best to plan to install it in a specific location? I think that's the question.
Yeah, again, I want to answer this question in maybe 2 areas. One is we want to install that the inverters. What's really the impact on the generation? So in generally, we think the microinverter generate a bit more power than the string inverters. So that's the thing, we generally believe in that. When you think about this, maybe it's one of the consideration you need to think. The other thing is the microinverter is normally on the roof. You don't really need anything, in the house to think about it. But it creates a little bit of issue. What happened is microinverter fails, and you have to hire some people, going up and to do this, to change the microinverter. Lots of time, the equipment has 10 years to 25 years warranty. I don't really worry about too much equipment. It's more about you put that inverter on the roof. You need to hire some people to go there to change it for you. Sometimes it's become costly. So that's a consideration you have. But saying that, it's all about economics, right? You generate more power, you're facing a little bit maintenance issue in the future, but also you face a little bit equipment failure rate as well. In general, the microinverter believe has a relatively longer life than string inverters. So when you make that decision, whether you put that inverter on the roof or near your furnace, near your electric panel, you need to think about how long that inverter can last and what's the failure rate after 10 years of usage, because that one need to be removed and put it back. So by saying that, I think it's a complex question. You need to think about its cost, its generation, and its future equipment failure rate. All need to be considered. Make that decision whether you want to put that inverter on the roof or near your electric panel.
Amazing. Thanks, Alex. I think we maybe have time for one or two more questions in here. Someone is asking about how many businesses and companies are involved in one simple 7 kilowatt residential solar panel system installation, such as sales companies, electric company, electrician, etc.
Maybe I weigh in first and Heather and Grace chip in. I think it's one can be done. Like our company do from design, permitting, the installation. We also help other company to do the installation as well because the team is excellent. And we do the online monitoring and all the maintenance things. In short, one company is more than enough. And you only want to deal with one. You don't want to deal with 3 and keep on coordinating in your site.
Yeah, I would agree. So typically what I would recommend is make sure you're using one company that's on our directory, because a lot of our companies will contract out different aspects. So our members, some of them will contract out the sales, some of them will contract out the electrical components, some of them will contract out the design. So there are contractors involved, but you as a consumer shouldn't be dealing with all of those contractors. You should have one point of contact who is a Solar Alberta member. And the reason for that is because all of our members are held accountable to the Solar Alberta Business Code of Conduct. And if they are members with us, you can hold them accountable to that. And that includes all of their contractors. So if they are contracting out sales and their sales contractors are not abiding by our code of conduct, you can actually report them to our ethics committee and they can be held accountable. If you are working with one of our members and they are contracting out the design and they're not working in accordance with our code of conduct, doesn't matter if they are literally an employer of our member or just a contractor, they are all held accountable to our code of conduct. You can report any infringement on the code through our website. And we actually have a session about the code of conduct this week, one of our morning sessions, if you're curious about that. And so, yeah, you shouldn't, as a consumer, be dealing with all those contractors. Your Solar Alberta member should be the one managing that. Some of them will do it all in-house, and some of them will not contract any of that out. And so each of the members is a little bit different, and it just depends on their areas of expertise and whether or not they've developed strong partnerships with contractors or have decided to bring that expertise in-house. So yeah, it'll be different from member to member, but they should all be abiding by the same code.
Thank you, Heather. And it looks like we're out of time. And so I just want to say thank you so much to Grace and Alex for their presentation today. Thank you to Enbridge for sponsoring the 2024 Solar Show and to Rocky Mountain Solar Co. for sponsoring this particular session. And I just wanted to thank everyone here for attending. If you didn't get your question answered or you have more questions, feel free to attend many of our wonderful sessions for the rest of this week. As well, you can reach out to office@solaralberta.ca. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.